my parents screamed. "You were never the daughter we wanted. We should have never had you." I buttoned my coat, told them they'd get their wish, I'd be gone for good, and walked out. When their world eventually crumbled, they showed up begging for another chance, but I never said they'd get one. Some families simply fray, their bonds stretching thin over years until the quiet tears into a chasm too wide to bridge. Mine didn't fray. It shattered in a single, brutal evening, though the foundation had been crumbling since I was old enough to discern the cold glint of disappointment in my parents' eyes. My name, the one they bestowed upon me, ceased to matter to them long ago. What truly resonates is this: I was 28 when I finally walked away, and 33 when they tried to claw their way back. Those years in between? They were, without question, the richest of my life. My Sacramento childhood was a masterclass in conditional affection. My younger brother, Tyler, emerged from the womb bathed in a golden light, athletic, charismatic, the living embodiment of Patricia and Dennis's dynastic dreams. He snagged varsity letters, charmed the homecoming queen, and secured a partial scholarship to Stanford. Sunday dinners weren't meals. They were weekly coronation ceremonies for his latest triumph. And I existed at the far end of the polished mahogany, a ghost at my own family's feast. I wasn't built for sports. My world was woven from books, introspection, and an fervent passion for environmental science and wildlife conservation. While Tyler paraded home with trophies, I offered up meticulously researched papers and worn volunteer certificates from the local animal shelter. My mother, Patricia, would dismiss them with a look that spoke volumes, the polite, cool assessment reserved for a consolation prize, barely concealing her profound disappointment. My father, Dennis, offered a different kind of wound. He'd feign interest, a perfunctory pat on my shoulder, a hollow "That's nice, honey," before swiveling back to Tyler, eager to dissect football plays or outline future business empire strategies. Dad's commercial real estate firm was a kingdom, and from the moment Tyler turned 16, he was anointed its heir apparent. My aspirations, my very existence, were never even queried. My path was preordained by their rigid, glittering vision, a vision I had no place in. High school became a tolerable escape, thanks to friends who actually saw me. College? That was pure, intoxicating freedom. I fled to UC Davis for marine biology, my tuition largely covered by scholarships and a small, precious inheritance from my grandmother Ruth that Patricia couldn't touch. Those 4 years were a revelation. I could, in fact, thrive without their stamp of approval. Graduate school only solidified that truth. By 25, I'd landed a position with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, dedicating myself to coastal habitat restoration. The work was profoundly meaningful, the pay decent, and I excelled. I published papers, led field teams, secured substantial grants. My supervisor, Dr. Brandt, once told me, eyes twinkling, "You have a future in policy, if you want it." Meanwhile, Tyler had sailed through Stanford and seamlessly joined Dennis's firm. He married his college sweetheart, Amber, in a lavish affair where I felt relegated to the farthest edges of family photos, an anonymous figure in the background. They bought a sprawling house in Granite Bay, courtesy of a hefty down payment from Dennis, a gift I knew, with a dull ache, I would never receive. I never resented Tyler. He had been kind, in his own way, defending me from bullies, quietly helping with homework when our parents weren't watching. The problem wasn't him. The problem was that, in my parents' universe, there was only ever room for one child to truly matter, and it had never, ever been me. The final, decisive crack came during Thanksgiving when I was 28. I'd been dating Ethan for 6 months, a fellow marine biologist from NOAA. We were serious enough that I foolishly believed this time, might be different, that they might finally see me. The dinner was at my parents' grand house in East Sacramento, the same dining room where I'd endured countless holidays feeling eternally insufficient. Tyler and Amber were there, doting on their newborn daughter, Sophia. My Aunt Lorraine and Uncle Greg had driven up from San Diego. Everyone clustered around the baby, cooing, passing her between eager arms, while Patricia orchestrated the meal with military precision. Ethan and I arrived, bearing wine and flowers. Patricia accepted them with a tight, brittle smile that never quite reached her eyes. Dennis shook Ethan's hand with the perfunctory, dismissive grip he reserved for those he deemed inconsequential. Dinner conversation flowed, a seamless, self-congratulatory river. Tyler's recent promotion to senior vice president, Sophia's latest preschool achievements, Dennis's grand plans to expand the business into Nevada. During a rare lull, I tentatively mentioned my team had just secured a $3 million federal grant to restore wetlands along the Sacramento Delta. Patricia's fork clattered softly onto her plate. "That's taxpayer money, isn't it?" The table went silent, a sudden, expectant hush. I felt Ethan's hand find mine, a grounding anchor beneath the table. "It's federal funding," I clarified, my voice carefully modulated. "Allocated for environmental conservation. The project will create jobs and restore critical habitat for endangered species." "Sounds like government waste to me," Dennis grunted, reaching for his wine glass. "Tyler just closed a deal worth $40 million. Private sector. Real growth. Actual value creation." My throat tightened, a familiar constriction. "Different types of value," I managed. "Money is money, sweetheart." Dennis's tone was a condescending pat on the head, the way you'd explain the obvious to a particularly slow child. "You're almost 30. When are you going to get serious about your career?" Ethan stiffened beside me, a tremor of indignation. "She has a doctorate and leads a team of 12 scientists," he interjected, his voice firm. "That seems pretty serious." Patricia's eyes flickered to Ethan, a disdainful assessment. "You must be the boyfriend. The one who also works for the government." "I'm a federal researcher, yes, ma'am." "How lovely." Her voice could have frozen water. "Two people living off taxpayer dollars. Quite the power couple." Lorraine valiantly tried to pivot, asking about Sophia's first Thanksgiving, but the damage was done. I felt the familiar weight settling over me, the suffocating awareness that nothing I did, no achievement, no contribution, would ever be enough. Sophia, 5 years old and utterly oblivious to the poisoned air, tugged my sleeve. "Do you want to see my drawings?" I did. They were vibrant crayon renderings of dolphins and sea turtles. For a fleeting moment, I saw a reflection of my own childhood curiosity, a piece of myself in her innocent wonder. We endured through dessert before Ethan and I made our swift exit. Patricia didn't try to stop us. Dennis had already retreated to the living room with Tyler to watch football. I thought that was it. I thought I'd go home, shed a few tears, and simply resume the shallow, carefully maintained relationship we'd established. Surface-level pleasantries during holidays, minimal contact otherwise. I'd stopped expecting more years ago. Then, 3 days later, Patricia called. I was in the field, knee-deep in a marsh, collecting sediment samples, when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't answer. Something made me check. "You embarrassed us on Thanksgiving," Patricia began, without preamble. "Bringing that boy and flaunting your little government job like it's something to be proud of." I pulled off my mud-caked gloves, my team working silently around me. "I'm at work, Mom. Can this wait?" "No, it cannot wait. Your father and I have discussed this extensively. We're concerned about your life choices." "My choices are fine." "They're not." Her voice sharpened to the razor's edge I remembered from childhood scoldings. "You're nearly 30, unmarried, working a job with no real prospects. You've wasted your education on a field that will never provide financial stability or social standing." The marsh suddenly felt very, very cold. "What exactly do you want from me?" "We want you to stop pretending you're satisfied with mediocrity. Tyler has built something real. You're chasing birds in swamps. Endangered shorebirds in critical habitat zones," I corrected quietly. "And I'm good at it. You're good at disappointing us." Patricia's words were precise, surgical. "You've been doing it since you were 12 and refused to try out for cheerleading. Since you turned down that nice boy Marcus, whose father owns the Mercedes dealership. Since you picked bugs and animals over business school. I'm a marine biologist. You're a waste of potential." Her voice rose, the careful control beginning to fray. Do you know what it's like for me at the club? When Linda brags about her daughter the attorney, when Francine talks about her son the surgeon. What do I say? That mine's playing in mud for $40,000 a year? Something inside me crystallized. I make $73,000 plus benefits, and I've published 14 peer-reviewed papers. Nobody cares about your papers. Patricia was shouting now. Nobody cares that you can identify some fish or count some birds. You're not the daughter I wanted. You never were. From the day you were born, I looked at you and knew you'd be difficult. I told your father we should stop at one. That Tyler was enough. I should have. She stopped herself, but in a sudden, echoing silence, the unspoken words hung heavy in the air. You should have what? My voice didn't sound like mine. Nothing. Forget it. Say it. Ice ran through my veins. Finish what you were going to say. A long, agonizing pause. Then, softer, but far more devastating. I should have made different choices. You've been nothing but a disappointment from the beginning. I wished I'd aborted you when I had the chance. There. Are you happy? That's how much pain you've caused this family. The world tilted around me. My team continued working oblivious. Someone laughed at a joke I couldn't hear. A heron soared gracefully overhead. Okay, I said. Okay, what? Okay, I understand. Thank you for clarifying. Don't take that tone with me. You need to accept reality and make changes. Your father agrees. We've discussed cutting you out of any inheritance unless you get your life together. Go to business school. Find a real job. Marry someone respectable. Stop wasting your life on nonsense. I looked down at my muddy boots, my field notebook filled with careful observations, the water samples that would help determine restoration success. I thought about the grant I'd written, funding 3 years of critical research, the interns I was mentoring, the vibrant ecosystem I was helping to save. I need to go, I said. We're having dinner next month to discuss this properly. You'll be there. No, I won't. Excuse me? I won't be there. I won't be anywhere you are ever again. Patricia laughed, sharp and cruel. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. My hands were steady as I packed my equipment. You wish you'd aborted me. You think I'm a waste and a disappointment. You don't want the daughter I am. So, I'm going to make this easy for everyone. I'll stop existing for you. You can't just... I hung up. My supervisor, Dr. Brandt, watched me with a concerned frown. Everything okay? Family stuff? I'll be fine. I wasn't. I drove home in a daze, called Ethan, and cried for 2 hours while he simply held me. Then I did something I should have done years earlier. I blocked Patricia's number. Then Dennis's, then Tyler's, because I knew they'd use him as a messenger. The next week, I changed my emergency contacts at work, purged them from my social media. When a Christmas card arrived, I returned it unopened. Tyler tried anyway. He showed up at my apartment 3 weeks after that phone call, standing in the hallway looking uncomfortable and utterly guilty. I almost didn't let him in. They sent you. I stated through the cracked door. Nobody sent me. I came because you're my sister. His eyes were red-rimmed. What Mom said was unforgivable. I told her that. Dad, too. They know they screwed up. They've been screwing up my entire life. This was just the first time they said it out loud. I know. Tyler's voice broke. I know I should have defended you more. I was a coward. But please don't disappear. You're my sister. The thing about Tyler was, he genuinely believed this. He'd lived in a different house than I had, with different parents. His version of Patricia was proud and supportive. His version of Dennis was engaged and encouraging. He'd witnessed my treatment, yes, but he never fully understood it because it hadn't been his reality. I love you, I told him, the words aching. But I can't have them in my life anymore. And if you're going to be their messenger, I can't have you either. I'm not their messenger. I'm your brother who's scared of losing you. You should have thought about that before you let them make me invisible for 20 years. I closed the door. He knocked for 5 long minutes before finally leaving. I sat on my apartment floor and cried until my throat was raw. Ethan stayed through all of it. Even when I woke up crying at 3 a.m., even when I canceled plans because I couldn't face pretending to be okay, he understood what it meant to be judged for choosing passion over profit. January brought a job offer that changed everything. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute wanted me to head their new coastal conservation program. Better pay, more resources, a prestigious institution. I'd be working with some of the best marine scientists in the country. I accepted within a week. Ethan secured a transfer to NOAA's Southwest Fisheries Science Center in Santa Cruz. We moved together to a small house in Capitola with a breathtaking view of the ocean, close enough to my work in Monterey, far enough from Sacramento that running into family was impossible. The move itself was liberating. As I packed, I realized how little I actually owned that connected me to my childhood. A few faded photos of Tyler and me as kids, my grandmother Ruth's delicate necklace, some beloved books from college. Everything else was mine alone, untainted by memories of disappointment. Our new house needed work, but that made it perfect. Ethan and I spent weekends stripping wallpaper, painting rooms in colors we chose together, planting native gardens that would attract local wildlife. Every improvement felt like a declaration of independence. This was ours. Nobody could walk through and judge it. Nobody could compare it unfavorably to Tyler's professionally decorated showcase. My team at Monterey Bay was everything I'd hoped for: 15 researchers, 5 support staff, and a budget that actually allowed us to accomplish meaningful work. My first project involved meticulously mapping eelgrass beds along the Central Coast and developing restoration protocols for degraded habitats. The data we collected would inform policy decisions affecting thousands of acres of vital marine habitat. Dr. Sarah Martinez became not just a colleague, but a genuine friend. She'd grown up in a similar family dynamic, the disappointing daughter, who chose archaeology over law school. We'd share coffee in the lab and swap stories about family dysfunction, laughing at the sheer absurdity of parents who couldn't see value outside their narrow definitions. "My mother once told me I was wasting my PhD," Sarah said one morning, examining sediment cores. "She said I should have become a paralegal like my cousin, because apparently spending my life uncovering human history is less valuable than filing legal documents." "Did you cut her off?" "Limited contact. I see her twice a year and let her believe I'm a teacher, because it's easier than explaining what I actually do." She looked at me curiously. "You went full scorched earth, though. That takes guts." "It was survival. Staying connected was killing me, slowly." "Do you regret it?" I paused, considering the question. "No. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I didn't have the parents I deserved. But cutting them off? That was the healthiest thing I've ever done." Work filled my days with purpose. I'd arrive at the lab by 7, spend hours analyzing data, reviewing grant proposals, mentoring graduate students who reminded me so much of my younger self, passionate, uncertain, hungry for validation from someone who understood their calling. I gave them what Patricia never gave me: genuine interest in their work, constructive feedback, encouragement that wasn't conditional on fitting someone else's vision. One student, Marcus, came to me in tears halfway through his first year. "My parents say marine science is a dead-end field. They want me to switch to engineering." I saw myself in his face. "What do you want?" "I want to study coral reef restoration. I want to spend my life helping ecosystems recover from human damage, but they say that won't pay my bills." "Marcus," I said, meeting his gaze directly, "I own my house outright at 31. I consult for state and federal agencies. I've published papers that have influenced international policy. Your parents are wrong about the field. The question is whether you're strong enough to prove it to them." He stayed. Last I heard, he'd secured a prestigious fellowship studying Caribbean reef systems. His parents still didn't understand, but he'd stopped needing them, too. For the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for approval that would never come. I stopped justifying my existence to people who had already decided I wasn't enough. I built a life from scratch, surrounded by people who valued expertise over appearances, conservation over consumption. The work was extraordinary. I led a team of 20 researchers, secured funding from private foundations and government agencies, published papers that were cited hundreds of times. At 30, I was invited to speak at international conferences. At 31, National Geographic featured my work in a documentary about coastal restoration. The documentary changed things in ways I hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, strangers recognized me at conferences. Universities invited me to give lectures. My inbox filled with interview requests from science journalists and environmental podcasts. The visibility was uncomfortable at first. I'd spent my life being invisible. But I learned to use it strategically. Every platform became an opportunity to advocate for conservation funding, to highlight the work of my team, to demonstrate that environmental science was both meaningful and viable as a career. One interview question stuck with me. A reporter from a science magazine asked, "What drives your passion for this work?" I almost gave the standard answer about loving the ocean, about wanting to protect ecosystems for future generations. But something made me honest. I spent my childhood being told that what I cared about didn't matter. That studying living systems was frivolous compared to business or law. I do this work partly because it needs doing, but also to prove that the people who dismissed me were catastrophically wrong. Every restored wetland, every protected habitat, every policy I influence, it's proof that they didn't know what they were talking about. The quote appeared prominently in the article. Afterward, I received emails from dozens of scientists sharing similar stories. Apparently, parental dismissal was a common origin story in conservation biology. Ethan proposed on the beach where we'd collected our first samples together. A small ceremony. Close friends. My colleague, Dr. Sarah Martinez, was maid of honor. No family from my side. It hurt less than I'd expected. The ceremony took place at sunset on a quiet stretch of beach near our house. 20 people gathered on the sand, colleagues, friends from graduate school, Ethan's parents and sister who welcomed me into their family without reservation. His mother had cried when we told her about my parents, not with pity, but with a fierce anger on my behalf. "You deserve better," she'd said simply. "But you found it anyway. That takes a strength most people never develop." I wore a simple dress, carried native wildflowers Sarah had gathered that morning. No elaborate production, no drama, just two people who'd found each other in marsh mud and built something real. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, there was a moment of silence that felt weighted. A small, irrational part of me had worried that Patricia or Dennis would somehow appear, would ruin this, too. But the beach remained peaceful, the waves providing soft background music, and we said our vows without interruption. Afterward, we had dinner at a local restaurant, filled with drinks and laughter and stories. Ethan's father gave a heartfelt toast about finding partners who challenge you to be better. Sarah made jokes about our terrible field fashion sense. Nobody mentioned my absent family. It was the best day of my life. Our honeymoon was a research trip to the Galapagos. 2 weeks studying marine iguanas and collecting data that would supplement our coastal adaptation models. We worked alongside local scientists, learned from indigenous conservation approaches, and spent evenings watching sea lions play in the surf. Some might have thought it a strange honeymoon, but it was perfect for us. We were building our marriage on a foundation of shared purpose, and that felt more romantic than any beach resort. Professional success continued to chase personal happiness. At 31, I was offered a position on California's Coastal Commission, advising on environmental policy. The salary that came with it, $140,000 annually, plus consulting fees, pushed my income well past what Tyler had been making at Dennis's firm. I bought a house, not a McMansion in suburbia, but a beautiful Craftsman in Pacific Grove with native landscaping and solar panels, a 10-minute walk from the ocean. I'd saved aggressively, invested carefully, and paid cash. No mortgage, no debt, no one to answer to. The house, built in 1924, was weathered but solid. It needed updates. The electrical was ancient, the The plumbing questionable, but the bones were gorgeous. Hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, a fireplace with original tiles, a yard that backed onto a protected greenbelt where deer came to graze. In the evenings, Ethan and I renovated it ourselves over 6 months. I learned to lay tile, to install light fixtures, to refinish floors. Every improvement was intentional: energy-efficient windows, low-flow fixtures, reclaimed wood countertops. We transformed the backyard into a native plant paradise: California poppies, coastal sage, lupins that attracted butterflies. A small vegetable garden where we grew tomatoes and herbs. The day we moved in, I stood in the living room and cried. Not from sadness, but from the sheer weight of accomplishment. I was 32. I owned a house. I had a career I loved, a husband who respected me, financial security. I'd built it all alone. Everything Patricia said I'd never achieve, I'd not only achieved but exceeded. Sometimes I'd walk through the rooms and imagine what she'd say. Would she critique my furniture choices? Would Dennis comment that the house was too small, not impressive enough? Would they compare it unfavorably to Tyler's larger place? Then I'd remember, they didn't get an opinion. This house existed in a world they couldn't touch. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents had wanted financial success and social standing. I'd achieved both, on my own terms, in a field they'd dismissed as worthless. Life was good. Better than good. I had a husband who loved me, work that mattered, colleagues who respected me, and a home I'd built myself. The grief over my family faded to a dull ache I only noticed occasionally, usually during holidays. Thanksgiving that first year without them was strange. Ethan's family invited us to Seattle, and I spent the day with people who asked genuine questions about my research, who complimented my contributions to dinner, who made space for me at their table without conditions. His nephew asked if I could help with his science fair project. His mother framed a photo of our wedding and hung it with the other family pictures. Christmas was harder. I kept thinking about the years I'd spent hoping this would be the holiday my parents noticed me. The gifts I'd carefully chosen, opened with polite disinterest. The conversations where I was background noise. Ethan found me crying on Christmas Eve, watching snow fall over the bay. Missing them? He asked softly. Missing what they should have been, I corrected. The parents I deserved. I'm not sad about losing Patricia and Dennis as they actually were. I'm sad about losing the possibility that they could have changed. They had 28 years to change, he reminded me. I know. But there was always this stupid hope that next time would be different, that they'd finally see me. Walking away meant accepting they never would. He held me while I grieved, not for the people they were, but for the relationship we never had. But mostly, life was good. Better than good. Then, 5 years after I'd walked away, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I was preparing for a presentation to the state legislature, focused and busy. Something made me pick up. Hello? Is this? A male voice, uncertain. Is this you, Tyler's sister? My stomach dropped. Who is this? It's Greg, your uncle. I got this number from your old college roommate. Took some digging. I sat down slowly. Why are you calling? It's about your parents. Your mom especially. She's... Look, there's no easy way to say this. She's sick. Cancer stage 4. She's been in treatment for 8 months, and it's not working. The doctors say maybe 6 months left. The floor seemed to shift beneath me. I see. And Dennis, your dad had a massive stroke 3 months ago. He's partially paralyzed. Needs full-time care. The medical bills are crushing them. I stared at my presentation notes, not seeing them. That's terrible. Tyler's doing what he can, but there are complications. The business, the commercial real estate market collapsed in their sector. Some bad investments, over-leveraged properties, then the stroke meant Dennis couldn't manage things. They've lost most of their assets. The house is mortgaged to the ceiling. Patricia's treatment isn't fully covered by insurance. Why are you telling me this? Greg's sigh was heavy. Because they need help. Family help. Tyler's maxed out his resources. And Patricia, she's been asking for you. Says she wants to see you before she dies. The woman who wished she'd aborted me wanted to see me. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no grief, just a vast emptiness. Tell her no. Please. Greg's voice cracked. I know what happened. Lorraine told me about that phone call, about the things Patricia said. It was unforgivable. But she's dying. She's your mother. She stopped being my mother when she told me I shouldn't exist. People say terrible things they don't mean. She suffered for it. They both have. Losing you, it's haunted them. Patricia cries about it. Dennis, even after the stroke, he mentions you. They made mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting a birthday or missing a recital. What they did was deliberate cruelty, over decades. Please, just think about it. They're at Valley View Medical Center in Sacramento. Room 412. Patricia is there full-time now. They can't afford home care anymore. He hung up before I could refuse again. Ethan found me an hour later, still sitting at my desk, staring at nothing. What's wrong? I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, then pulled me close. What do you want to do? I don't know. The honesty felt strange. Part of me feels like I should visit. She's dying. But part of me remembers being 13 and crying because she forgot my birthday while planning Tyler's party. Remembers being 22 and having her tell me my graduation didn't matter as much as Tyler's engagement. You don't owe them anything, Ethan said quietly. They chose this. You were a child who needed parents, and they failed you repeatedly. The fact that they're suffering now doesn't erase that. She's dying. Lots of people die. Some of them are terrible parents. I almost laughed. That's dark, but true. He cupped my face in his hands. I'll support whatever you decide. But don't go because you feel obligated. Don't sacrifice your peace for people who destroyed it repeatedly. I thought about it for 3 days. On the 4th day, I made a decision. I drove to Sacramento alone. The hospital was depressing, in the way all hospitals are, but Valley View had the particular grimness of a facility serving people who couldn't afford better care. I'd researched it. County hospital, overworked staff, outdated equipment. Room 412 was in the oncology ward. I stood outside for 10 minutes before entering. Patricia looked like a stranger. The vibrant, critical woman I remembered had been replaced by someone hollow and gray. She'd lost at least 40 pounds, her skin papery thin, her hair gone from chemotherapy. An oxygen tube ran under her nose. Dennis sat beside her in a wheelchair, the left side of his face drooping, one arm curled uselessly in his lap. They both stared when I walked in. Hello? I said. Patricia made a sound, half sob, half gasp. You came? Oh God, you came. I stayed by the door. Greg called me. I'm so sorry. Tears ran down her face, carving paths through the hollows of her cheeks. I'm so sorry for everything. I was wrong. I was so wrong about you. About everything. Dennis tried to speak, but the words came out slurred. Patricia translated, her voice breaking. He says he's sorry too. We both are. We were terrible parents to you. We see that now. I looked at them, these broken people who'd once seemed invincible in their certainty that I was insufficient. You told me you wished you'd aborted me. Patricia sobbed harder. I didn't mean it. I was angry and stupid. And I've regretted those words every single day since. When you disappeared, when you blocked us and moved away, I understood. I deserved it. But it's killed me. Not the cancer. Losing you is what's killing me. You didn't lose me. You threw me away. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know I did. I was so focused on what I wanted you to be that I couldn't see who you were. You were always so smart, so passionate about your work. You were good and kind, and I treated you like you were worthless. I destroyed my relationship with my daughter because she wasn't the doll I'd imagined. Dennis made more guttural sounds. Patricia nodded weakly. He says he's proud of you. We look you up online. We've been following your work. The Coastal Commission, the papers, the documentary. You're extraordinary. You became everything we should have helped you become, and you did it without us. I felt something twist in my chest, a cold, hard knot, but I wouldn't let it surface. Is that why you wanted to see me? To tell me you were wrong now that I've achieved the success you claimed I never would? No. Patricia reached toward me with one skeletal hand. I wanted to see you because you're my daughter and I love you. I've always loved you, even when I was too broken to show it properly. I wanted to apologize before I die. I wanted you to know that every terrible thing I said was a lie I told myself because I was too proud and too stupid to accept that you were perfect exactly as you were. I'm not perfect. I'm just myself. That's what makes you perfect. She was crying steadily now. Please. I know I have no right to ask anything, but could you maybe visit again? Could we have some time before I die? I want to know you. The real you, not the daughter I tried to force you to be. I looked at Dennis, who was also crying, tears running down the paralyzed side of his face. I looked at the small room with its cheap flowers and get-well cards from Tyler and Amber. I looked at the medical equipment keeping Patricia alive, at the fourth-line chemicals pumping into her veins that weren't working. They'd lost everything. Money, health, status, security. The life they'd built on judgment and material success had crumbled, and in the ruins they'd found regret. I don't know, I said finally. I don't know if I can do that. I understand. Patricia's voice was fading. But please know that I'm sorry. That I wish I could go back and be the mother you deserved. That you were always enough. You were always more than enough. I left without promising anything. Drove back to Capitola in silence. Walked on the beach until dark. Ethan was waiting when I got home. How was it? Sad? I leaned against him. They apologized. She says she's proud of me now. That she was wrong about everything. How do you feel? Empty. Not satisfied. Not sad. Just empty. He held me while I processed. Eventually, I said, they want me to visit again. To have a relationship before she dies. Do you want that? I don't know. Part of me feels like I should forgive them. They're suffering. She's dying. But forgiveness feels like erasing everything they did. Like saying it's okay that they damaged me for decades because they're sorry now. Forgiveness isn't an eraser, Ethan said quietly. It's just deciding that their damage doesn't control you anymore. You can forgive them without giving them access to you. You can acknowledge their regret without sacrificing your peace. I spent the next 3 days barely functional. I went through the motions at work, reviewing reports, attending meetings, responding to emails, but my mind was elsewhere. Sarah noticed. You okay? You've been quiet. I told her everything. She listened without judgment, then said something that shifted my perspective. When my grandfather was dying, he wanted to apologize for molesting my mother when she was a child. He'd found religion, wanted forgiveness so he could die in peace. She refused to see him. Everyone called her heartless. But you know what she told me? He wants absolution so he can feel better about himself. My peace requires him not being in my life. His deathbed doesn't erase decades of trauma, and his comfort isn't my responsibility. She paused. What happened? He died. She didn't go to the funeral. She slept better than she had in years, because she chose herself over his need for redemption. Sarah squeezed my hand. You don't owe dying people forgiveness. You don't owe anyone access to you, regardless of their circumstances. If seeing them helps you heal, go. If it reopens wounds you've worked hard to close, stay away. But don't go out of obligation. That conversation helped, but it didn't make the decision easier. I thought about it for weeks. During that time, Tyler reached out through work channels, desperate, emotional emails begging me to visit our mother, describing her decline, the pain, the regret that consumed her. He apologized too, for not standing up for me more, for being complicit in my erasure. Greg called twice more. Lorraine sent a letter. Even Amber tried to reach me, saying Sophia asked about me sometimes, longed for the aunt she'd never met. I received updates through these channels. Patricia's cancer was aggressive. She had maybe 3 months now. Dennis had developed pneumonia from being bedridden. Their medical debt was over $600,000. The house would be sold to cover it. Tyler was trying to rebuild the business, but it would take years. They built an empire on shifting sand, and it had swallowed them whole. I made my decision 2 months after that first hospital visit. I drove to Sacramento on a Saturday morning, this time with purpose. The hospital room was more crowded. Tyler was there with Amber and Sophia. Lorraine sat beside Patricia's bed. Dennis looked worse, his breathing labored. They all looked up when I entered. Sophia, 10 years old now, stared with wide, curious eyes. "Hi," I said. Patricia struggled to sit up. "You came back." "I did." I stayed near the door. "I've thought a lot about everything. About what you said, what you did, all of it. I'm so sorry." I held up a hand. "Let me finish. You spent my entire life making me feel inadequate. You compared me to Tyler constantly. You dismissed my passions, my career, my choices. You told me I was worthless. You said you wished you'd aborted me. Those things damaged me in ways I'm still working to heal." Patricia was crying silently, tears tracking down her skeletal face. Tyler looked at the floor. "But you were right about one thing. I'm not the daughter you wanted. I never was. I'm better than that daughter. I'm someone who builds instead of destroying. I create value that isn't measured in dollars. I help endangered species survive. I educate future scientists. I contribute to something larger than myself." I took a breath. "I came here to tell you that I've forgiven you." Patricia sobbed. Dennis made anguished sounds. "I forgive you because carrying anger was hurting me, not you. I forgive you because I've built a life so good that your opinions of me don't matter anymore. I forgive you because you're small, broken people who couldn't see past your own limitations, and I feel sorry for you." "Thank you," Patricia whispered, her voice barely there. "Thank you so much." But my voice was steady. "Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I forgive you, but I won't have a relationship with you. I won't visit again. I won't pretend we're family. You had 20 years to know me, and you chose not to. I won't give you my last months just because you're dying. That ship sailed 4 years ago. Please," Tyler said, his voice raw. "Please don't do this. She's our mother. She's your mother. She stopped being mine when she told me I shouldn't exist. You got the parents you needed. I didn't. That's not my fault, and it's not my responsibility to fix at the end." I looked at Patricia, really looked at her. "I hope your last months are peaceful. I hope you find whatever redemption you're looking for, but you'll find it without me. I understand." Patricia's voice was barely audible. "I understand, but please, could you tell me about your life? Just a little, so I can die knowing who you became?" I considered leaving, but something made me stay. Made me talk for 15 minutes about my work, my husband, my house by the ocean. I told them about leading the Coastal Commission, about testifying before Congress, about the documentary that had reached millions of people. I told them I was happy. Patricia listened with her eyes closed, crying quietly. When I finished, she said, "I'm so proud of you. I know I have no right to be, but I am. You're exactly what the world needs. Goodbye," I said. I walked out and didn't look back. Tyler followed me to the parking lot. "How can you be so cold?" His voice was accusatory. "She's dying." "I know." I unlocked my car. "I'm not cold. I'm protecting myself from people who hurt me repeatedly." She apologized. Apologies don't erase damage. They don't entitle her to my presence, or my forgiveness, or my time. She made choices for nearly 3 decades. I'm making mine now. "What about Dad?" "He can barely speak, but he's trying. He wants to know you," He should have wanted that when I was 12. When I was 16. When I was 25. Not now, when it's convenient for him. Tyler's face hardened. You're punishing sick people. That makes you just as bad as you think they were. No. I met his eyes steadily. I'm refusing to set myself on fire to keep them warm. There's a difference. You stay if you want. You be the good child who sacrifices everything. I'm going home to my husband and my work and my life. The life I built without them. The life they said I'd never have. I drove away. In my rearview mirror, Tyler stood alone in the parking lot, looking lost. Patricia died 6 weeks later. Lorraine called to tell me. I thanked her and hung up. I didn't attend the funeral. I sent no flowers, no card, no acknowledgement. Dennis died 3 months after that. Same response. Tyler tried to reach out several times over the following year. I never responded. As far as I was concerned, I had no family in Sacramento. But I had family. Ethan and I adopted a daughter from foster care when I was 35. A brilliant 8-year-old named Jasmine who loved science and asked endless questions about marine ecosystems. We gave her the childhood I'd wished for: support, encouragement, unconditional love. At 37, I was appointed to lead California's new Climate Resilience Initiative, a $50 million program coordinating coastal adaptation strategies statewide. The governor mentioned me by name in a press conference. National media covered the story. One article mentioned my background. Doctor, my name, from UC Davis, decorated researcher, policy expert. No mention of family. I'd made sure of that. My work has been cited in Supreme Court cases about environmental protection. Students travel across the country to work with me. I've testified before the United Nations on coastal conservation. My salary is more than Dennis made in his best years. I never think about whether Patricia and Dennis saw any of this before they died. Their approval stopped mattering the day I walked away. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty. If I should have given them the deathbed reconciliation they wanted. If forgiveness should have looked different. But then I come home to Jasmine showing me her science project. To Ethan planning our next field research trip. To the view of the ocean I've worked so hard to protect. I see the life I've built from nothing, with no help from people who should have been my foundation. And I know I made the right choice. They wanted me to stop existing. So I did for them. And in that absence, I became more than they ever imagined possible. The daughter they didn't want became the woman they could never be. Someone who builds instead of destroys. Who creates value that outlasts any bank account. Who chose meaning over money, and found both. I don't need their post-mortem pride. I don't need their deathbed apologies. I don't need anything from them. I have everything I need. I built it myself. And that's the best revenge of all.